Now, in terms of the JRPG news this week, there is a bunch. Gamescom happened. There was also like a Nintendo Direct, and there was like a lot of events happening with like a lot of JRPGs being announced. Like always, I don't cover every single JRPG news because that'd be fucking insane, especially this week where there are multiple events. Pretty much, I go over the big things, and if not that, just the things that I personally find interesting. Which, you know, I'm more into the Kingdom Hearts, Trails games, or even if there's a new announcement which I think looks cool, I will mention it. So that's kind of how I cover the news. So this week I have like maybe 5 or 6 news stories I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start with the most exciting one for me, which is the Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, the first announcement for the Nintendo Switch. Now, the way I found out about this is funny because I was on YouTube, and in my subscription box I saw that Trails in the Sky was announced for Nintendo Switch, and I was like, holy shit, that's cool. They're actually finally bringing it to consoles, because from what I know, other than like, you know, playing it on the PSP or whatever, you can only play it on Steam or like on PC right now. And so when I saw it on the Switch, I was like, oh, that's cool, another way to play it. And then I just like stopped thinking about it, because I literally just thought it was an announcement of the existing game on Switch. Later in the day, like in the evening, I saw a picture on Twitter, and then I saw a screenshot of the game, and I was like, wait, hold the fuck up, is this a remake? And then I looked into it, I'm like, oh shit, it is a remake. And it's funny that like it's huge news in my opinion, but like I just didn't really realize until later. And so yeah, Trails in the Sky the first is what it's called. The original was called Trails in the Sky First Chapter, I believe, or FC, and so they're rebranding it to the first. I think it sounds fucking dope, and the game visually just looks beautiful. It's using what I assume is the modern engine. It looks very good. I still haven't played Daybreak yet, but at least when comparing it to Cold Steel, it does look better than Cold Steel from like the screenshots I've seen. I haven't watched the trailer yet, and so I'm gonna be watching it live for the first time with you guys here, so we're gonna be doing that. But yeah, it's just very cool. Before going to the trailer, I did want to mention that it is only announced for the Switch so far, which I thought was pretty odd, because if it was just like the original game on Switch, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a pretty simple game. But it's a full modern remake, and it's only on the Switch. And apparently Falcom was questioned about this, and they said that the other platforms are to be discussed. They don't really have answers for that. And the only thing I can think about why that's happening is that they already have deals to announce it at other events. So for example, if there's a State of Play in the future for PlayStation, maybe they'll announce a PlayStation version there. If it wasn't for that, I literally don't understand any other reason why they wouldn't announce it on other platforms, or why it would be an exclusive to the Switch. If they made it exclusive to the Switch, this would be one of the biggest bungles in gaming, I swear to God. That'd be just stupid for what the game is. But I think they're probably just gonna announce like the PlayStation version at a State of Play and the PC version at whatever PC showcases there are. And so that's my opinion of what's gonna happen, but we don't really know. But yeah, and also one more thing before getting to the trailer, in terms of like localization and publishing. Right now it is said that it is coming out worldwide in 2025. I found that interesting because the Trails games in terms of localizations aren't quick. Like, we are decently behind Japan in the Trails games they have. Only very recently we started getting like a lot more at a faster rate. And so when they said worldwide 2025, I was like, is it gonna be a worldwide release like day and date, or is it going to be a few weeks apart, or what's that going to be? But what surprised me even more is in the article that I was reading on Gamatsu, which is where I source everything from in terms of news, is they said that they don't have a localization partner yet, which I felt like was odd. I have no idea how quick or how soon in the process of game development you're supposed to get one, but if they have plans for a 2025 release, it's going to be 2025 in like, you know, a few months, and they don't have a localization partner, I feel like that's weird, because I'd assume translating in that takes time. And what they pretty much mention is they're going to try to find a local localization company, and if they don't, they will publish it themselves. And at least from what I know, have they ever done that for a Trolls game? Because from what I know, the early Cold Steel games and maybe Trolls in the Sky, they were localized by Xseed, and then at some point they moved to NIS America, and NIS America is what is currently publishing the current Trails games in the West. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that like they just didn't go with NIS America right away, or maybe they're in the talks with Xseed, because I think they're the ones who published the original Trails games or the Sky games. I'm not completely sure, but I thought it was very interesting that they also mentioned that like they themselves, Falcom themselves, may be the ones to publish the game, which I don't know if they've ever done before, from my understanding. I'm not sure, I didn't really look too much into it, but yeah, I just thought that was very interesting, where like it's not very clear how it's going to come to the West, and especially because they said it's going to come worldwide 2025, so we'll see how that works out. But yeah, before I talk more about it, I thought it'd be fun to watch the trailer for the first time with you guys, so we're going to be watching it right now. So I'm going to be watching the Japanese version, because the Japanese version is like nearly a minute long, where the English version I believe is only like 10-15 seconds. I'm gonna be watching the Japanese version, and I'm gonna be starting right now. And it shows the Nintendo Switch logo, and right off the bat showing Joshua playing his fucking harmonica. Shows us tell. Yo, this looks so good. The first thing oh my god. The first thing I'm noticing is the lighting. It looks insane. She's got animations of her bow staff. Okay, it's introducing Estelle. And yeah, it's pretty much the models from the Cold Steel games. I'm really liking the outfits. I don't think we've seen Joshua with his outfit in 3D. They're at the Bracer Guild looking at potential jobs. Oh, you have her. I forgot her name, but the one at the Bracer Guild who gives you jobs. Yeah, it pretty much looks like Cold Steel, but the lighting looks... Oh! Wait, hold up. The battle system looks interesting. Okay, I was trying to see if it's going to be turn-based or real-time. It still seems to be turn-based from what I can tell. Yo, the character models look fucking good. Oh, yeah, Charizard, very cool. Okay, so that's the entire trailer. Honestly, that's a decent look. That was more than I thought. Okay, so to break it down just from what I saw, I was very curious to see what the battle system was going to be because they actually wrote a bit about it. Let me try to find what they wrote. But pretty much what they said is that the world was going to be seamless, so you'd be able to go from field to towns seamlessly, and that it would be a command-based battle system. Now, to break that down, in terms of the seamless part, I'm not completely sure what that means because technically, even in the Trails of Cold Steel games, you can go from the field to town, but there is a transition. Like, it's kind of like a classic JRPG where you gotta hit an invisible wall that fades out and fades into the town. I don't know if that's what they mean by seamless, or whether it's gonna be a thing where, like, you straight up are in the field and you can just walk into the town with no loading. If it's that, if there's no loading, that's, I think, a new thing. Again, I didn't play Daybreak, maybe they have it in that too, but if it is like that, that's a pretty fucking huge jump from, obviously, Trails in the Sky, which looks like a PSP game, so that's very cool. In terms of the battle system, they mentioned that it's a command-style battle system, and when I read that, I didn't know what that meant, because that technically could allude to either real-time or turn-based, and while the original was turn-based, I do know that the future Trails games, the plan they have is to fully go into real-time, so I was very curious to see what they would do for this game, because this is a new game, but it's a remake of an old game, what they would do. And when I was watching the trailer, at first I thought it was real-time, because Estelle just hit an enemy, and without loading or transition or anything, it just went straight into the battle, so I'm like, oh shit, is it real-time? But then, from what I saw, I think it was turn-based because the bad guys were still and she was choosing her attacks and it was showing the different area of effect damages that she could do. So from what I can tell, it looks turn-based and it pretty much looks like an evolved version of the Trails of Cold Steel battle system. It doesn't look exactly the same because the Trails of Cold Steel battle system has a very iconic like UI, how you choose like attack, item, command, style, whatever. But the UI was slightly different, but it did look turn-based still, which is good for me because I do prefer the turn-based style, and I am kind of sad to see Trails go the real-time route because I think Trails was like not one of the last games, but one of the games where I like really appreciated that it stayed turn-based in the modern era of real-time fighting games. So it is sad to see them go to the real-time route, but the fact that this is still turn-based is cool because we're going to have this game, we're potentially going to have a second game, and then who knows if they'll do the third game because that was a pretty weird one compared to the first two. And now that I think about it, it is pretty interesting that they are doing it, that it is called Trails in the Sky there first. I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if it was just called Trails in the Sky and they took the first two games and just like crunched them together, because since this is a remake, and I don't know if they've done a remake on this scale yet for Trails, I believe, I'm not sure, we don't really know how they're going to adapt the original story. Like, is it going to be one-to-one and they just straight up just do it in 3D? Is it going to add content to allude to future stuff? Because this technically is the first game in the long line of Trails games they have now. We're like on the 11th, 12th game or something like that in the West, and so this is the first of that series. So like they have a lot of opportunity to add stuff or allude to future characters if they really want to, and it'd be very cool for people who have played the entire series to go back to it and kind of like see these Easter eggs. But at the same time, it is a modern remake. Modern games usually are more expensive to make and they're usually shorter. I wouldn't be surprised if they start cutting stuff, and I don't know what they would cut. I don't really have Trails in the Sky that fresh in my mind, but if there were any segments that felt like filler or felt like they just did it to extend the game, maybe they'll just entirely cut it out. I'm not sure. I hope they keep it one-to-one or add stuff, but like at the same time, the state of game development now compared to when they made Trails in the Sky first chapter is so different that I wouldn't be surprised if they start cutting stuff and making changes. And honestly, to think about it like overall, I'm not sure which I would prefer, because right off the bat I'd be like, no, I want a one-to-one to the original, but at the same time is like it'd be kind of nice to have it kind of different, because you can still play the original. It's there on Steam, but like maybe if they add new stuff, if they add new mechanics, it would be cool. And to kind of seamlessly transition to that, I am very curious to see which mechanics they would add if they did any, because Funnily enough, I believe it was on episode 16 of Spill the Tearal. I literally had a segment of me looking forward to a JRPG, and I talked about a Trails in the Sky remake, and I talked about exactly what I would want in it. And so I kind of already gave my thoughts of what I would want in a remake, and I even mentioned that I don't think it's ever happening or anytime soon. It may happen like within the next 10 years, and the fact that it happened like a few months later is funny. But I mentioned in that something that I would maybe want is like a bonding mechanic or something, because that is such a big thing in Trails of Cold Steel, and other mechanics that are team-based, because as you bond with the character, you actually get more abilities to do with them in battle. So like that's one thing where I'm like, maybe they'll add it in this. Who knows? I don't know if they can, because there's not that much of a team based aspect in Trails in the Sky compared to Cold Steel. It's mostly you and Joshua, or Estelle and Joshua, and later you get more people kind of like temporarily. So we'll see how that works, but it's just very interesting and exciting to see how exactly they're gonna, change stuff in this remake. And just kind of like a few more points that I want to mention that I noticed is I kind of like that they kept the speech boxes in the game, like the classic style. Kind of looks like parchment paper, where like if you look at the Trails of Cold Steel games, there's this kind of like more sci-fi blue transparent box, where Trails in the Sky usually had a more classic look, I believe. And the fact that they kept the classic look for the UI, where like, yeah, the speech boxes are this parchment looking paper, I thought was a pretty cool detail. And to end off this new segment, I will end off with the description of the game. Probably should have started with this, but it is an orthodox story that depicts the journey of two companions. The protagonists are Estelle and her partner Joshua, who aspire to become bracers, protectors of peace in the region. As they take their first steps as apprentice bracers, the duo travels across the Liberal Kingdom, resolving various requests and incidents in each place they visit, gaining experience as bracers along the way. And yeah, if you've played the game, you obviously know that, but it's very cool to see the beginning of the journey again, because if you play the game, you know how they end up in the future. But yeah, we will end off this new story of Trails in the Sky the first and go to the next one, which is a game called Metro Quester Osaka, which is announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Now, let me just read this description here, which is Kemco has announced Metro Quester Osaka for PS5, Xbox, blah, blah, blah. It is a console port of the 1000 games developed by Dungeon RPG Quester Osaka, which is currently available for PC on Steam. It will launch on September 13th. And I saw this game, and like clearly it says it's a remake, and I looked at the version that's on Steam. It's a very interesting looking game. It's not what I expected. It very much looks like I don't even know if old school is the right word. Like, it looks like almost like a text-based game. It isn't. There is graphics. Like, the graphics are pretty much like a black screen with the green UI. Like, it's that type of vibe, like almost like a DOS type vibe. And there's like a 2D version of a map, which I guess you move your characters on. The battles are completely UI based, where like it just shows your characters on the left, like in boxes. It shows the enemies on the right in boxes, and I guess you battle through that. So it's very like old school looking. And there's more of a description I can read here of that version, which is Metro Quester Osaka is a dungeon exploration RPG based on post-apocalyptic futuristic world created by the manga artist Kazushi Hagiwara, with a deep game quest system designed by Hironari Kato that offers excitement and surprises reminiscent of 1980s computer games through hack and slash. Yes. And so yeah, based on what they said, the 1980s computer games, it is a very like old school looking game. The UI again, green on black. And I don't know if this new remake is like, I don't know if it's just a port and it's gonna look exactly like this, or are they actually remaking it to be like a 3D game or something. I'm not 100% sure, but if I had to guess, it's probably gonna be the former. I think they're literally just porting it over because the art of the game that they chose for the new story for like the new versions that are coming is the exact same one on PC and Steam. And if that's the same, I'm gonna assume the game is the same too. But yeah, this game, I thought, it's not one that I would ever play, but I thought was kind of weird and interesting enough that I thought I would mention it here. But yes, that was Metro Quester Osaka, which is coming to all the consoles pretty much on September 13th. The next news story is for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, and it's coming to PC, iOS, Android on September 11th. And I thought this was very interesting because I've heard of this game and I saw it, and it's very cool to see that it's coming on mobile platforms. I personally am a fan of that because there's so much games on mobile now which are like console quality, like Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, where there really isn't an excuse for JRPGs not to be on mobile, because if those games are on mobile, a lot of JRPGs can be on mobile, especially like the 2D ones. And so this game coming on mobile, I think is pretty dope. It's just a fucking huge audience that that there's a potential to sell to. And yeah, and like based on what I can tell from reading the description, this Dragon Quest game isn't like a traditional Dragon Quest game. It is one focused more on monsters, and I believe the character you're playing as is a monster wrangler, and he's trying to become like the best monster wrangler in the world or something by creating an army of monsters. It seems very cool. That's not something I believe I've seen in Dragon Quest before. I'm not that familiar with the series. The only one I've played is Dragon Quest 11, and I'm pretty much done it, but I haven't finished it. But I thought it was very cool, and I also really like the MC's design. I've seen this game here and there, and I thought the MC with the gray hair and the red eyes just always looked cool, especially because at least for Dragon Quest 11 I've never been that much of a fan with how the main character looks, so I thought this one did look a bit cooler personally. But yeah, Dragon Quest Monsters the Dark Prince is coming to PC, iOS and Android on September 11th. And from here, the next news story is Atelier Yumiya, the Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land is announced for PS5, Xbox, PS4, Xbox One, Switch and PC, so pretty much everything. Now, there wasn't much I can find about this, and there's not much I want to say about it. The only reason I brought it up is because I played Atelier Ryza a bit on Steam. I played it and I got to the point where I was crafting a lot and giving everyone armor and new weapons, but there was a boss that was like really fucking hard, and I thought that it was a boss that you're supposed to die on. Like, that's how hard it was, where I just got like completely wiped. But then like, no, you actually have to beat it, and I kept trying to do my alchemy, collect materials, craft new armor and weapons, but I was just not able to beat the boss, so I just kind of dropped the game. But I did enjoy the game from what I played of it, and so I think it's cool that we're getting another Atelier game. And at least personally, for the longest time, like whenever I see Atelier games, I've always seen Ryza. I know there's like a fuck ton of Atelier games before that, but whenever I saw like a modern Atelier game, it was always a Ryza one, because I believe it's like a trilogy. So I just thought it was very cool to see like a new Atelier game called Atelier Yumiya not come out, and kind of see how that's gonna do. So maybe that's something I'll look into when it comes out. But yes, it is a game that does look somewhat interesting to me. And from here, we'll move on to another news story, which is Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate, Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars adds PS5 and Xbox Series versions, and it launches on March 6th, 2025. Now, there's a description, so I guess I'll read this first before getting into it, which is: a once renowned hero turns into a violent tyrant and an empire falls into decline. A liberation army is rising up in an act of rebellion against an oppressive rule. One by one, for 108 stars of destiny gather to shape the course of history. Now, the description that I just read is actually for the first Suikoden. I'm not reading the second one in case it kind of like spoils the first one or something. But the reason I brought this up is because I can't 100% remember if it was this game, but I remember there was a JRPG I really want to play. So once in a while when I'm very bored, I will Google JRPGs that like you should play, whether it be old ones or new ones or whatever. And I believe Suikoden was one that I was very close to trying to play, but people were saying like, don't play it right now. There is a remaster coming out soon. Just wait for it. And I believe like I wanted to play like years ago, like maybe a year or two ago. So now that it's coming out on PS5, this will be a good chance for me to try it. I'm not sure when I'll try it. I pretty much is whenever I'm bored, I think of trying new JRPG, so maybe I'll try it then. But it sounds pretty interesting from the story. And just from the description, they also mentioned that the difference between the original is that they have graphical improvements, new character drawings, sound improvements, game system improvements, which are pretty much quality of life things, etc. So pretty much the normal things you expect from like a remake, not really a remake, but a remaster almost. So yeah, and based on what I can see from the video, it's a 2D pixel art game with turn-based battles. And so yeah, that was Suikoden. And the last news story, which is really not a story, I just want to mention it, is that there is a new Metaphor ReFantazio trailer called Travel Beyond Fantasio. I'm not watching it. I believe I mentioned this before, but like at this point, I think I've seen enough of the game where like I will try it at some point when it comes out, but I don't need to see more of this game. They've kind of sold me on it, and so I'm not going to be watching the trailer, but I want to let you know in case you are interested and want to watch it. And also they did announce that they're going to be having another stream on August 29th, kind of announcing new stuff. As they do with these streams, they announce like new things about combat or new things about story. I probably won't be covering it. I'll probably mention it when it happens, but it is happening on August 29th, which is tomorrow from when I'm recording this.